Shalom, sir. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Shalom, Israel. With the Israelite School of Universal with the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. This is under Commander General Yohana. Since 1969, we've been teaching the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians that they are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. And I'm just going to try to get rid of this echo I have over here. Stand by. Call her name and city. Do call her name and city. Okay. So first I want to read who we are as Isupk. In Isupk, we are educating Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians about their true heritage, which is comprised of the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Bible. Once our people begin to follow the laws in the Bible, God, or Yahweh in the Hebrew, will look down from heaven and have mercy on us. He will also send Christ to free us from our oppression. Using the Bible, the Isupk will fix all the problems of the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian communities, turning a lawless and immoral people into a law-abiding, righteous people. The true nationality of the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Indians, and West Indians of the North, Central, and South America are the true descendants of the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. And Jesus Christ, or Yahweh Shai Mashiach, is their king. So once again, Israel, we get into who Israel is, so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. And we're going to be starting off in Deuteronomy chapter 27 and verse 1. And, we need to keep this in context. Everyone's familiar with the story of Israel, the exodus out of Egypt, when the Most High delivered the children from Egypt with all the plagues and everything. And, we recognize that, but it's hard for us to recognize and understand and realize or even accept that we are those actual people that the Most High led out of Egypt. You have to learn how to put yourselves in your rightful place to have the inheritance that the Most High has for you through Christ. You're starting off with Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 1. And Moses, with the elders of Israel, commanded the people. Thank you. Now this is Moses. He took the elders with him also. So it's not just Moses commanding. Now, first of all, you have to understand that the Most High gave Moses these commandments. And Moses, along at this time right now, he's taking elders with him of Israel, also commanding all the people. So if you could use your imagination and see Moses along with the elders going to all of Israel commanding. Now, this is not just Moses talking by himself. It's him and the elders of Israel. And Moses with the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, keep all the commandments which I command you this day. So it's not just Moses talking. Once again, it's Moses and all the elders telling all of Israel to keep the commandments which the Most High command this day. Now, we as Israelites, when we hear people, they hear us priests and prophets on the streets talking about keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. We're talking about the law, statutes, and commandments in our everyday conversation. We live, eat, and breathe, sleep, and talk these commandments on a daily basis. You say you believe in the Bible, right? So you need to read this passage right here, Deuteronomy chapter 27 and verse 1. Now, it's not me telling you. It's not Officer Tazabah telling you. This is the Most High telling you who you say you believe in. So you say you believe in the Most High, so that means you must want to do what he say. Because if you don't do what he say, how can you believe in him? So once again, and Moses, with the elders of Israel, commanded the people, didn't ask them, commanded them, saying, keep the commandments which I command you this day. It doesn't get too simpler than that. When you get in class, come to the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, you're not going to get all the fairy tales that you've gotten in the Christian church. You're going to get the true facts of what this word is saying. And you're only going to get it from the priests and prophets of the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge under command of Yohana. Your preacher, your Christian preacher, cannot break this word down the way that it needs to be broken down for you to understand it. Not just to understand it, but to hear what it's actually saying, what the Most High is saying to you, and what Christ is saying to you, how to live your life, how to prepare yourself for everyday life, how to prepare yourself for the kingdom. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 28:1. Once again, that's Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1. And it reads, it shall come to pass. That means when it says it shall come to pass, that means it will happen. Any commandment that the Most High gave Moses, the elders, and that he's given you, when he uses the word shall, that means it will happen. It says, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently. Hearken diligently, that's listen. That means listen hard, not just you hearing. You mean listening with an intent ear. If thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God. You can hear his voice through these words in this book. So when you're reading these words, when the priests and prophets are reading this word, this is the Most High talking to you. So if you shall hearken diligently or listen real intently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. I've seen some priests and prophets in some classes do a whole 2 hours, 1.5 hours on one verse. And that can be done, right? When we look at everything that's being said in this verse right here, it's just amazing how if we just listen intently to what the Most High is saying, and will we have a hard time understanding that if we do what he say, if we do what he says, he's going to do what he says he's going to do. And we don't get that. We don't understand that. So I'm going to read this again. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments. So he said do all the commandments. People hear us talking about the law, statutes, and commandments, and they think to themselves, they can't do it. So since they believe that they can't do it, they don't think we're doing it. I will task anybody that's online right now, any of my coworkers, whoever it may be, to follow me around for a day Follow me around for a week. Follow me around for a year and see if I keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. See if I observe them. See if I do them. So there's the invitation. And I'm sure any priest and prophet would throw out that invitation to somebody who's not sure about how to follow these laws, statutes, and commandments. That's what you learn how to do when you come to class. That's what you do when you come and start listening diligently to the word that's in this book right here. It says to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. So you follow all these laws, statutes, and commandments, and he says, I will set you above all nations of the earth. That means above all people, right? Now we're going to get to the part where, the opposite happens, right? But right now, this is what we're concentrating on, following the laws, statutes, and commandments, and the Most High setting you above all the nations of the earth. That's what we're talking about right now. And we have a hard time believing that we, as so-called Black, Hispanic, Native Indians, can be Slakia, will be set on high above all nations of the earth. Because we've been brainwashed to believe that we're supposed to be hand in hand with everybody on the earth, that we're supposed to be loving all the other nations on the earth. When we know from reading the scripture that the Most High destroyed the earth by water, except for 8 souls, because we wanted to walk hand in hand and be with all the other nations of the earth. And we have a hard time understanding that. We have a hard time understanding that because we wanted to build a tower to the Most High, that he broke it down and confounded our languages. Once again, we're trying to be hand in hand with all the other nations, building a tower, right? To the point where the Most High had angered him so much that I don't even want you talking to the other nations. You got to grasp that he confounded the languages so we wouldn't even talk to them. And now he has his words in a book that only his priests and prophets can break down, so that he is talking to us through his word. Special only to Israel. That's who he's talking to through this book right here. All we have to do is learn how to listen. What we have to do is understand that we have to separate from our oppressor and get the proper understanding of the word that the Most High is trying to give us. It's giving us. I understand he's trying to. He's giving it to us. And all we have to do is accept it. Get in class, learn and obey the law, statutes, and commandments, and also learn how to take orders from the men above you. So I'm going to read it one more time. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth. So he's giving us this commandment knowing that we have the ability to do it. Why would he command us to do something that we're not even capable of? We hear about the 10 commandments. We're scared of those. We can't keep 10. Then we hear 613, 618, and there's actually more than that, because every time you see the word shall, that's a commandment in the Bible. When the Most High tells us we shall do something, that's a commandment. That's what we're supposed to do. So once again, he's not going to tell us to do anything or command us to do anything that we're incapable of doing. And with that, I'm going to go to Deuteronomy 28 and 15. Any questions or comments? Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. When we hear that word curse or curses, we get all afraid, and we start thinking that because of the way the world has taught us, we believe that word curse, it gives us all these ideas that, okay, well, since they're curses, it must be fairy tales, so on and so forth, and you're being punished. Yes, you're being punished, but at the same time, that word curse throws a lot of people off, right? And what I mean by that is it causes us as Israelites to not want to follow this word, not want to follow the Bible, not want to follow the priests and prophets that the Most High has set before us, right? And, if we take that word curse and just replace it with the word conditions, because it's our conditions that we are in. So, you take I don't know, you take the spooky yuki out of it, and understand that word curses plainly means conditions that you're in. So when you don't follow the laws of the Most High, you will be living in certain conditions. So I'm going to start from the top. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses, all these conditions shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Verse 16, cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. So you look at our conditions in the city, and it's obvious that so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians are cursed. Our conditions are real bad in the city, When it comes to our jobs, we're usually the last hired, the first fired. We live in the city, and we can only afford to live in certain neighborhoods, which are usually projects or the reservations or the barrios. They take a city and try to make it beautiful when you look at it from the outside, but the closer you get into that city and go to where we live, the uglier those conditions become. And all the way to the point, is New Orleans name and city?
Also, Kasar calling in from East Palo Alto.
Shalom, sir. How you doing?
I'm for a while. How was yourself?
I'm for a while, sir. Thank you for joining in.
No sweat, no sweat.
Okay, and so we look at all these conditions that we're living in the city. When I was a kid, growing up in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, we used to joke about it. We used to talk about the conspiracy against the black man, right? And little did we know, we had no idea how true that was. Now, we know that same made it to us because there is a conspiracy against the black man. We look at Psalms 83, we can see where that conspiracy starts in Psalm 83. So you look at the conditions that we're living in, and it's strange, and it's called a new caller, name and city. Atazah, Shalom, Mark. Shalom, Yahweh Shem Yahshai Barakatah. And we look at a lot of the conditions that we live in, and I talk to my coworkers, every so often about the truth, because it's something that we can't get away from. We're priest and prophet. You're gonna talk about the truth every chance you get, and I'm still new in this truth. Still learning how to think like an Israelite, right? Being 50-something years old, coming to this truth, having learned to speak like our oppressor, think like our oppressor, thrive like our oppressor, having no idea what my true heritage is, right? So when you look at, and still experiencing a lot of those conditions that we go through when we live in the city. And one of our coworkers brought out something that I thought was kind of heavy. He's thinking about the truth. He's not coming. But at the end of the day, he's learning to think like an Israelite, right? And he had this theory about, roaches. When you look at the conditions in the city, why is it that there's a lot of roaches in the projects? I'm sure all of us have experienced opening up cabinets, seeing roaches come out and all this other kind of stuff. I bet nobody on the phone or online has not experienced that as a kid at some point in time. His point is that they actually bred roaches and put them in the projects. We are really a clean people, but they design our cities to oppress us. And just that thing about conspiracy against the black man, you cannot put it past our oppressor when you consider how your grandmother used to live and clean the house and had you cleaning the house, but there's still roaches everywhere. It's not far-fetched to believe and understand that our oppressor put them there. So cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. And we know today, our Hispanic brothers and sisters have it real bad in these fields working for these corporations and oppressors. Working 12, 13, 14 to 15 hours a day, getting paid pennies on the dollar. And it's because we will not listen diligently and do these words, the law, statutes, and commandments. And that's why we're in the conditions that we're in. And I'm going to start from the top. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. So when you look at us as a whole, Israel, we don't want to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. We want to follow all the other things, Buddhism and, consciousness and all this other kind of foolishness. And then we try to understand why we're cursed in the city and why we're cursed in the fields. Why our children are locked up down at the border. And nothing's making it right that they should be locked up at the border. But at the end of the day, when you look at our tribes individually, we have certain things that we just will not do. As far as when it comes to these laws, statutes, and commandments, we don't believe it when we hear that you need to be a righteous individual, that you need to follow the laws, statutes, and commandments. We don't believe that we should. Go ahead.
Okay, finish your point. I heard a little more.
Well, I was just going to say, sir, we have a hard time understanding, especially in the Judite community, trying to understand that we shouldn't be looking at our brother's wife. We shouldn't be eating shrimp, crab, pork, and lobster. Those things, we consider those things too hard to do. And then we wonder why we're still in the conditions that we're in. But go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah, Salaki, if I may, real quick, going on to the city and the country breakdown, I believe I heard General Muhammad break it down this way. He basically said that another thing that a lot of people like to do is say, this city is not for me, or Oakland, especially cats in the Bay Area, they always, I'm tired of the Bay, it's small around here, and same people and everything like that. I'm just gonna move, you know what I mean? Or vice versa, people from the South and New York, everybody, they just feel like they want to move to get away from their problems. He said, the problem is you are.
Right.
These curses is gonna follow you no matter where you go. So don't think that changing and moving to Milwaukee or moving to Minnesota is gonna change your position, because the curses is following you, not the place that you live in. So that's also everything that I learned about that country. That's all I have to say. A lot.
That's right. Thank you. I appreciate that, sir. What I want to bring out is real heavy. A lot of times you have people who are deep into their addictions, whether it's drinking too much, whether it's smoking weed, and then they say, well, you know what, I'm going to move to another city. Well, guess what? They have alcohol there and they have weed there too. And now you're there. And if you don't start following these laws, statutes, and commandments, you'll never shake those bad habits. Go ahead.
All the same kind, man. Right. That's right.
Water. We're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 32. So these are some of the curses and conditions that we were experiencing as a people for not following these laws, statutes, and commandments. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fall, and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. And once again, this lesson is about who Israel is, the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. And we look at these curses. These curses do not fit anyone but Israel. We have some imposters over in the Middle East, who say they're the true Israel, the true Israelites. But they can even bring themselves, they such lying, filthy bastards, that they can't even bring themselves to call themselves Israelites. They call themselves Israeli or Jewish. They know they're imposters. They know they don't fit this book. This did not happen to them. This happens to the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians, and it's happening today also. We know, we've all seen the movies, of slavery, and babies are snatched from their mothers and their fathers. We've seen the movies, and it's depicting it, in a really, I'm sure it had to happen much worse than what they show in these movies. We can imagine what it feels like to have a baby and have the child snatched from your arms. To have a child, if you have the child for a little while and the child starts showing promise in certain areas, whether it be academically, whether it be physically, and that child is sold to another plantation for the gifts that they have. That didn't happen to the fake Jewish people. That happens to us. Right? Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given into another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there should be no might in thy hand. And then we ask ourselves, how is that happening today? It's happening today because, we put our kids in front of the TV. We let our kids listen to the radio stations and all this other kind of stuff with all these messages coming through, all these subliminal messages, right? Over the years, these subliminal messages start getting more and more blatant every year as time goes by. In the past, it was subliminal messages that, and we like to say it's blatant today, interracial marriages, interracial relationships. Your child makes a decision to marry outside of our nation, and guess what? There's nothing that you can do about it. So your child is married to a heathen, and all you can do is look. And let me go to this passage because this is real deep. Because your child is actually given over to another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there should be no might in thy hand. Here you are, even being in the truth. You could raise your child to believe or to understand, to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. And even with outside influences, you never know what can happen. So that's why we always have to be on guard when it comes to our children, what we expose them to, what we let them listen to, what we let them watch. And if we are watching with them or listening with them, to understand what the law is, and break this down to them, to lead them in the right direction. There was a precept that I wanted to bring out. I don't know if I can find it or not. It's the one about, when we talk about these on the side of the road. Um, see here. Yeah, I'm having trouble finding it right now. But basically, it's talking about, once again, like I mentioned earlier in the class, we live, breathe, and talk these commandments all day long. And that's what we're supposed to do with our children, right? Because if we're constantly putting this word and these laws into their hearts and their minds, hopefully they will not go away from what we're doing. The scripture, I'm paraphrasing, lead a child the way that they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart. And even if they think about straying or stray to some extent, that they always come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments, right? So even if they do make a bad decision, a bad choice, to choose a bad relationship, or they develop a bad habit, we've fed them this word, right? And our prayer is that they come back to the law, statutes, and commandments. And the Most High will honor them coming back to these law, statutes, and commandments. Even if they've gone to another nation, married another nation, the Most High will accept them back, as long as they follow these laws, statutes, and commandments. So there are many parents out there today who don't understand, that their children have been given over to another nation, by following this nation's pagan holidays, Christmas, Easter, birthdays, so on and so forth. When we see our kids doing those things, there's nothing that we can do about it. And we understand that we're supposed to be keeping the high holy days, and see them trapped, in all this sin. And it's because of our oppressor, the grip that they have over the media, TV, radio, print, ad, books, magazines, so on and so forth. We're being bombarded by this every day. Not understanding that this is warfare, spiritual warfare. And we have to start preparing our kids for this spiritual warfare. Let's start preparing each other for this spiritual warfare. And I know, we got adults. I'm talking about kids right now, but adults are in the same situation. Our oppressor has a grip on their minds on what they should be doing every day. Walking hand in hand with our oppressor. Going to church with a bunch of oppressors. And then we go so long, we don't even know we're being oppressed. I'm going to Deuteronomy 28 and 48. Therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, and hunger. So this enemy that we're talking about, the Lord shall send them against us in hunger. So that means we're in need of our oppressor. We have to depend on oppressor when we're hungry, right? And in thirst. We have to depend on our oppressor for water. And in nakedness. Go to our oppressor for clothing. They're dressing us all up like, not us, but they're dressing our people up, like homosexuals. Tight pants, underwear showing, and so on and so forth. And that nakedness not only applies just for clothing, it applies to these laws, statutes, and commandments, because they have you believing that by you keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments, you're naked because you're not following the world. They want you to put on all these worldly things, not just clothes, but in thought, food, everything. So they have you believing because you can't eat a good pork sandwich, man, you're naked. They have you believing because you don't go to the strip clubs, you're naked. This is some fun things that they like to do, these delicacies and so on and so forth. And you're gonna miss out on the strip club, and you're gonna miss out on all this barbecue pork and bacon and all this other kind of stuff. You don't know what you're missing. But the Most High tells us what we're missing. We're missing these laws, statutes, and commandments, and He has instructions on how we should follow and how to follow them. And in want of all things, and He shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until He have destroyed thee. Once again, we go back to the slave movies. We've seen all those slave movies with the yokes of iron on their necks, their legs, leg irons, so on and so forth. And He said He should put a yoke around upon thy neck until He have destroyed thee. And now because today we don't have yoke of irons around our neck, we think we're free. We just celebrated, when I say we, I don't mean we as ISUPK, I mean we as a people, celebrated Juneteenth, supposedly commemorating when we were free as slaves. Well, we know that we're still slaves today, right? And what this is saying is that He will put the yoke of iron around your neck until He has destroyed thee. So we are destroyed at this point as a people. We had to change around our necks and our arms and our legs for so many years. We now the change, they're on our minds now. They're on our attitude, they're on our beliefs. To be chained to His beliefs. To be chained to the way of doing things, how our oppressor do things. Because we're destroyed. And the Lord, verse 49, and the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. So we know we were slaves. We know we're on the west coast of Africa, Central Africa, right? We know that an oppressor came over to Africa and got us, and understand in 70 AD when we were chased out of Jerusalem, that's how we ended up in Africa. But we're not taught the 70 AD part, right? We're just taught about slavery. We're not taught about who we are as a people. We're not taught about who we are as a nation. They try to have us thinking that the nation that we are Africans or Hamites. That's not who we are. So once again, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far. We knew that who that oppressor is that came a long ways over the ocean and got us. We know we refer to him as the so-called white man today. It says that swift as the eagle flieth. I know we all know why it's prophetic, and we all understand that the nation of the Edomites from Rome to Germany all the way to the United States now, their symbol of freedom is the eagle. That's why it says as swift as the eagle flieth. When the United States so-called landed on the moon, what was the first thing Neil Armstrong said? The eagle has landed. The white man, our oppressor, knows who he is. He knows he's the oppressor. He knows he's the devil that the Bible speaks of. So this nation that he's going to send against us, it says, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. We didn't understand English when they start bringing us over here to this land. And a lot of us still don't understand English. You know, I've been in this country 50-some years. I still ask my wife what certain words mean. Not because I'm uneducated, it's because uh, I should not go here, but I'm gonna go there. My wife is an English major, you know, so you know, from time to time she uses words. I'm like, man, what does that mean? You know, and once again, not so much that that's a bad thing to know words. That's not what I'm saying. It's a good thing to know words, right? What I'm saying is that we don't absorb that like our oppressor does when it comes to certain things. There's certain things that they have kept us from doing, and certain things that kept us from learning, or try to keep us from learning. Slovakia. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the persons of the old, nor show favor to the young. So this oppressor is not going to show favor to old people or young people. When you look around and see how the oppressor treats us, no matter how old we are, no matter how young we are, you know, we're seeing videos day in and day out, you know, how the oppressor is treating us, treating our old people, you know, evicting old people, evicting kids onto the streets, pushing drugs into our neighborhoods and our communities, not caring who gets a hold to them. And then they want to blame us for the problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you bring out so heavy to go back to the language real quick. Just brought something to my mind as far as this language is the opposite of our native language.
Right.
Everything about it is opposite from, we read from right to left. Theirs is from left to right. That's not a coincidence. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everything about it. And I even remember the language you speak is the way you think. It formulates the way your brain works. And even I remember learning about some Native Indian communities, certain words don't exist in their language, so they don't even have these concepts. Like, I'm not sure if it's this one, but just for an example, it's like the word should. Like, that means something, like, I should do this. Or the word if. You really sit and think about those words, you know what I mean? It changes the way you, like, I should have done this. You can't go in the past. How can you should have done something? You know what I mean? But
right.
Now you're thinking this way, and you're stuck in this mode of regret because that's the way you think, because of the words you use. So you're right. The language is really not for us. That's probably why. Like you said, it's not. You should learn and master the language as anything that we do, but definitely you can understand why our people, it's just different for us because it's not our culture, and that's all I say on that.
Right. I appreciate you bringing it up. That's real heavy. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's real deep. I appreciate it. Go ahead. No, not at all. Not at all, sir. I appreciate it.
Be quiet for now. Be quiet.
No. Keep it coming. Keep it coming because somebody needs to hear this. And, you know, I won't be able to bring everything out. And, you know, that's why we had a brotherhood to do that. So I appreciate it. So once again, you know, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the persons of the old, nor show favor to the young. And what the priest and prophet had just brought out about the language, same thing there. You know, there used to be this old saying about dumbing down our kids in school, so on and so forth, right? Well, the dumbing down comes in dumbing us down from our culture, our history, right? You know, it would be a wonderful thing. We open up all our Israelite schools, have Israelite teachers teaching the language. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's something what you brought out about, how y'all brought out about thumbs down, even on music. And that's a bit more than on music. You know what I'm saying? They push certain music to where, but back in the day, all rap music, it could be political. You know what I'm saying? You talk about, and that's been correct, you know what I'm saying, outside. You know what I'm saying? The food music, we talk about our time. Now, we talk about, you know what I'm saying? Kid Cudi. I don't know if y'all remember this rapper, Kid Cudi. And he did an interview about it. You know what I'm saying? So he was rapping about poverty and things. You know what I'm saying? Not poverty, right? But, you know what I'm saying? If some Jewish producer or whatever told him, you know what I'm saying, that he needed to dumb down the music. So he came out that song, you know, dumb it down because they were trying to tell him to dumb down the music. So, you know what I mean? It's like, Bruce said, it's no coincidence. You know what I mean? That's all I want to say out.
Come. Appreciate it. I heard most of what you said, sir. There's something going on with your phone. There's a lot of crackling in there. But we did get the gist of what you said about dumbing down the music, so on and so forth. And, you know, when we look at all the oppression that we're going through, bringing up the issue of music, you know, the Christian church has got us so trapped with these conditions. You know, if the churches were open right now, you know what they'd be doing, right? They'd be jumping up and down, singing about our conditions. Let me see here. Bear with me for a moment here. Yeah, so anyway, here we go. Psalm 137. It says, Shalakia, Psalms 137, verse 3. For there they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of those songs of Zion. So throughout our captivity, through all our you know, the conditions that we go through because we wouldn't follow the law, statutes, and commandments. And our oppressor takes advantage of us for not following these laws, statutes, and commandments. And yeah, they're doing their part, but they're going it one step, you know, too many steps forward. They like, you know, as they said in our community, Judah community, they putting a 10 on a 5 or something like that, right? So they're not just fulfilling the prophecy, they want to do more, you know, putting their knees on our neck. Point of phrase, right? But what will they have us doing in the Christian church about it? Singing and dancing. We are required when we are oppressed by our oppressors, when we're killed by our oppressors, to sing, jump up and down about it, to get on our knees and pray about nothing. No, during the Sabbath service, we have prayers that we follow, that we recite to the Most High, and these prayers mean something. They're not empty prayers. In the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, we are not required to sing a song about our oppression and make it sound pretty. So with that, I'm going to go to Deuteronomy 28 and 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from Flakia. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even to the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Now we're talking to Flakia. we're talking to the modern day Christian about who they are, right? And try to break this down so that they can understand that what they're doing is they're worshiping false idols, false gods, right? Because we all want our families to come into this truth, right? But at the end of the day, if they don't have an ear to hear it, they won't hear it. So I'm gonna start at the top again. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people. Now we know that to understand that the Most High has scattered the so-called Black, Hispanic, Native Indian in all the nations, all over the earth, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. Now our fathers are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They followed the Most High. But here it's saying because we didn't follow the law, statutes, and commandments, we would be scattered among all people. And it would get to the point where we would worship even wood and stone. And, and that sounds, for us it's a simple thing, but when our people hear that this is applying to what they're worshiping on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, they say, oh no, that can't be right. When it says we'll be worshiping wood and stone, that's talking about the religions that we get involved as so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. And one of the biggest religions right there right now is Christianity. That's what the wood is. That's the cross, the wooden cross. We worship it. We worship the white homosexual that they put on the depiction that they put on the cross. We worship that image. And the stone, of course, is the Kaaba stone that the Nation of Islam or the Muslims, that they march around every year. And because of COVID-19, of course, they shut that down. But they did not shut down Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, because we have not missed a beat when it comes to our classes. But the wood and stone is Christianity. The wood is Christianity, and the stone is Islam, or being a Muslim. And our people just can't fathom that. They don't understand that, because we were told when I was coming up, the Muslims, they would always, sell us bean pies. And yeah, we bought the bean pies, we ate the bean pies. And they tell us that, Christianity is a slave religion. And guess what? They were right about Christianity today being a slave religion. But what they did not tell us, and that their so-called teachers would teach them, that Christians or the Black people are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. So they know that they're the people of the Bible, but yet they're worshiping a rock. That's one I can't understand. Your so-called honorable teachers, Elijah Muhammad, will tell you that the so-called Negro is the Israelite that the Bible speaks of. But you know what? We're those people, but we're going to worship a rock, something that has nothing to do with our culture, something that has nothing to do with our God, with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So how is you can spend so much time at a mosque and read this Bible and not come into this truth? Because we don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments. And this is happening to our people all over the world, all over the earth. So Deuteronomy 28:64 again says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood or stone. Man, it sounds so simple. I don't understand why people won't wake up. Well, I do understand, but so we just keep pushing this truth day in and day out, and pray that our brothers and sisters come into this truth. We'll go to Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Once again, that's Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. He's talking about Israelites. And when we read the story of the children of Israel in Egypt, we understand that they walked to Egypt the first time, right? And they walked out on dry land through the Red Sea. But here it's saying, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. You know, we understand that Egypt is synonymous with, it means bondage. When our enemies came over to Africa and got us, what did they do with us? They put us in bondage on this continent, on this land called America. And they brought us over in ships. So America is just a modern day Egypt. Like the priest brought out over the weekend, flip your dollar bill over and see what it looks like. It looks like Egypt. Every society stamps on their money what their society looks like, what their society is. And this is supposed to be America. But yet, on our dollar bill, you see Egypt. How did you get over here to America? On ships. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. I'm trying to identify who you are, Israel. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So you've been sold into slavery in Egypt or America, and you got here in ships, and no man can buy us, right? What is our way out? If we're in bondage now, how do we get out of bondage? By keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, by enduring to the end, and the Most High will save us. And he's using his son, Yahushua, and 200 million angels to do it. We have a hard time understanding that. So we don't look to our politicians to save us, because now we're at the point now where, looking at how we've been trampled upon as a nation, for year in and year out. And now you're looking at a lot of black people or so-called black people online talking about vote. The t-shirts with the word vote on it. Even wearing hats with vote. I think that's going to deliver us out of this hell that we're living in. Voting is not going to save us. The Most High is going to save us. We don't set men above us in this wicked empire to save us. It's the Most High through Christ, and that's what's going to save us, the Most High. Have any comments online at all? Okay, so with that being said, I think we pretty much identified who Israel is. We looked at the conditions of Israel, all the way from the wilderness all the way up until now, and the curses that we fall under that fits nobody but us. We've identified who Israel is, the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. We're the ones that have gone through hell in this society from its inception. We have our Isupk brothers and sisters down at the border locked up and they've been locked up for a long time, kids sleeping under aluminum foil. Where was the outrage for that? The only ones you was hearing outrage from is the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge. The only ones that we know of who sent help or tried to send help was the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge. We've never stopped talking about our Isupk brothers and sisters and kids down at the border. It's sad that another brother had to die in order for us to be to where we are right now, right? But at the end of the day, we just don't get mad enough. We're not even mad enough about George Floyd. We're not mad about that. If we were mad about it, we'd be about it. We'd be about these laws, statutes, and commandments. Our minds, our eyes will open up to everything that we've done in this country from the 60s on up has not gotten us anywhere. I like to listen to so-called rap music from time to time, right? And I listen to brothers that are in the truth and their music, and sometimes a lot of people don't understand what's being said in these messages, these songs that we get from our brothers in the truth. It may sound a certain way, but if you listen, you'll hear the message that's being said. Slakia, and our murders get recorded every day. As Officer Natazab on one of his songs, one of his cuts that he do, our murders get recorded and nothing happens. They don't even care that they're recording our murders on TV and so on and so forth. Nothing changes. The only thing that can change is us, Israelites, keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments. Our jobs as priests and prophets is to go out and build this nation. Trying to get to that 144,000. And we just don't get it. Talk to brothers day in and day out. They know what our conditions are. They know who we are in the Bible. But at the end of the day, they don't think that they can be a priest and a prophet. So that's why we go out and prophesy to the wind. And when we do that, we know that the Most High's word will not return void. But we're going to do what we're supposed to do as priests and prophets. Understand, if you're looking at us online, Facebook, YouTube, you're probably doing your research now, looking at a lot of so-called fake Israelite groups. This is the home of the truth. Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge. Started out at 1 West 125th Street under Commanding General Johanna. This is the home of the truth. You may not agree with everything that you see and hear right now, but get in class so you can understand and then where we come from, how this doctrine is taught, how the truth is taught through its priests and prophets. Come and get a good understanding. As the scriptures say, in all thy getting an understanding, this is where you'll get it right here in Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. So you know you're Israelites, but what are you going to do about it? You say that Christ died for your sins, but what are you going to do about it? When you hear the fact that Christ died for your sins, and then there's something that you have to do, you don't want to do it. That's the job that the oppressor has done on us as a people. believing that we're not worthy. We can't be those people. We can't follow the law. So with that, but once again, we're identifying who Israel is. We know who that is at this point. At least I pray we know who that is at this point. We're going to go to the book of Matthew, chapter 1, verse 21. We talk about who Christ died for. In the book of Matthew, chapter 1, verse 21, it says, "And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins." His people. His is a possessive pronoun, right? He's not coming for everybody else. He's coming for his people. There's no getting around that. Look at Matthew chapter 10, 5 through 7. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, "Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into the cities of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather into the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as ye go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand." Now you get that in Christianity. They tell you that the Most High, that Christ sent his disciples to everybody. But right here is clearly saying, and you're only going to get this through us, Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. He says, "Go not the way of the Gentiles." We have to understand the context of what the Gentiles mean, or what it is in this context. And what that means is he's talking about the other nations. Go not into their ways. As you go into the lost sheep of the house of Israel, don't take on the oppressor's ways. Don't eat shrimp, crab, pork, and lobster. Don't celebrate Christmas. Don't celebrate your birthday. Identify who the lost sheep of Israel is and go to them. That's why when we're on the streets talking to people, one of the first things we ask, what's your nationality? And everybody knows their nationality pretty much. They know who their father is, right? So they'll talk about, if you have somebody who's so-called different nations or mixed, their mother's one thing and their father's something else. They know what their mother is and they know what their father is. So when they talk about they're Puerto Rican, they're the 12 tribes. They talk about it from the West Indies, part of the lost 12 tribes. Argentina to Chile, down in South America, Central America, Israelites. That's who Christ came and died for. Those are the people who he came. We are the people that he came to save from sin. Verse 7, "And as ye go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand." So when they went into all these different places, preaching to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, these people, we're in dire straits. They're in dire straits then, we're in dire straits now. And what Christ is telling us to do right now, he's telling us, endure till the end. Don't give up. Keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. You're tied to a lot of traditions and so on and so forth. But the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Don't give up. And we're preaching to ourselves also at the same time, because sometimes as a priest and prophet, your sword might get heavy. But don't drop it. Call your brother up on the phone if that sword gets heavy. Give you some strength. to hold that sword up and be ready for war the next day. If you go to Matthew 15:24. Wow, this is where it gets real heavy. Look at Matthew chapter 15:24. And this is Christ talking, right? But he answered and said, I am not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Don't get no simpler than that. The lost sheep of the house of Israel, that can't be everybody else. That can't be the so-called Eastern Indian, right? That can't be the so-called Chinese man, Japanese man, so-called white man, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So, I'm always waiting for somebody. I post things on Facebook every once in a while, and I ask people to show me where's salvation for anybody else but Israel. And I'm still waiting.
If I may.
Go ahead, sir.
John 3:16.
Fine.
I just need you to, what you're doing, since you pour down, that's where they're going to go to.
Fine.
So, you got that breakdown?
Oh, fine, sir. So, we go to John, go ahead. So we'll go to John 3:16. We'll go to John 3:16. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep it all in context and go up just a little bit, right? We're going to go to John 3:14. And this is Christ talking. He says, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. Now, when we're talking about Moses lifting up the serpent in the wilderness, we're talking about a time when the children of Israel were in the wilderness for those 40 years, a time period where they were being bitten by serpents and they were dying, right? So they entreated Moses, hey, Moses, you got a relationship with the Most High. Won't you, see what he could do about these snakes biting us and us dying? So Moses entreated the Most High. And he was instructed to build a fiery serpent out of brass. So in which when the children of Israel were bitten by this serpent, Moses held this serpent up on his staff, and the children of Israel looked upon it, and they were healed from those snake wounds, from that poison. They were saved from that snake bite. Right? So this is what Christ is likening to when we get down to John 3:16. He's saying that the Son of Man has to be lifted up also, and Israel has to look upon him. And at the same time, when we're talking about when Moses did it in the wilderness, that was for Israel and Israel only. It was the nation of Israel in the wilderness. It wasn't the nation of the Moabites or the Hagarenes or the Canaanites. It was Israel that Moses lifted up this staff, this fiery serpent, for them to look upon and be saved. So, Slakia, sir, let me just go ahead.
I mean, you got some more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll keep going. So, once again, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. In verse 4:15, it says that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, So you have to be of Israel and also believe in him so that you don't perish, but have eternal life. So that applies to Israel and Israel only. The whosoever applies to Israel, the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. These are all Israelites. That's who was in the wilderness with Moses. In verse 16, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That applies to Israel and Israel only. Now, if we go to the precept, we'll go to Isaiah 45:17. Because when you talk about that word world, it doesn't mean everybody on the planet. You know, that word world in context translates into cosmos, which means age or society. You know, we know there's all kinds of worlds, right? You know, you have the world of music. And even in the world of music, you have other worlds of music. You know, hip hop, classical, pop, reggae, so on and so forth. So that word world does not mean everybody on the planet. So when we look at Isaiah 45:17, it says, but Israel, it's not saying that the whole world, it's not saying the Moabites, it's not saying anybody else, but it says, but Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. That's only applying to Israel, right? And then we learn these laws, statutes, and commandments. We start coming into our culture, learning how we're supposed to speak, think, and act. We're supposed to be proud of that. We're supposed to be proud of wearing this warband on our head every week, every day, whatever the case may be. We're supposed to be proud about wearing these fringes on the edges of our borders, the borders of our garments, excuse me. Because here it says, ye shall not be ashamed. You should not be ashamed of being an Israelite. I was on a conference call months ago. You know, I started growing my hair, braiding it, and wearing boots every day, wearing a shield. And on the conference call, General said, rock the boots and the beards and the shield at work. So that's what I do. I rock it every single day. Not a day has gone by since I walked into the 81st Avenue Library that I have not had boots on. But that's only because of the Most High in Christ. I have nothing to do with that. But I am going to follow orders. But Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. You shall not be ashamed nor confounded. Not going to be confounded about these laws, statutes, and commandments. Not going to be confounded about who I am. Not going to be confounded about who salvation is for. I don't have a problem telling a Hamite that salvation is not for them. You might make it to the kingdom, but it won't be the way you think you're going to make it to the kingdom. Because you don't need to be saved. Israel needs to be saved. And that's who Christ said he was coming for. So you shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. That's the world that John 3:16 is talking about. He's talking about Israel, Israelites, the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. Go ahead, sir. Officer Gabadaban, you have something?
You know what, you're rocking, man. You ran it all the way through. Good job. Good job.
Come to what, sir?
You ran that all the way through.
So we're going to go to John 4:22. And man, it seems so simple, don't it? Excuse me. Our pressure would say, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? But anyway, and we don't get that. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah, your questions will make you want to think, whatever. Why would y'all want to stop being killed in the street? You know what I mean?
Right.
What the hell? I mean, what's so glorious about y'all not being shot dead in the street, and about y'all not making it home to your families, and about y'all not being wrongfully accused of all the things that y'all prove to be righteous of? You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, hey, 10 of the 12 videos show that none of these brothers was resisting or doing anything that the police said they was doing. And then you got this one, I don't know if that was an Edomite or whatever, but he was like, he was choking the brother, don't resist, don't resist. She said, just because you keep telling the brother don't resist, that don't mean he's resisting.
Right.
You trying to cover up your own tracks, you know what I mean? They have taken crafty counsel against us.
Right.
So with that being said, when they sit there and they choke you unconscious, they tell you don't resist, and your hands by your side, you ain't flinched, you ain't moved a muscle, when you still sitting there saying, you know what I mean, don't resist me, don't resist me.
Right.
That right there lets you know that, man, these people don't need saving, you know what I mean? The Lord, the Yahushua didn't come to save them, man. They already in charge. When you can just verbally speak and tell a man, and you got 100 people in front of you videotaping this, and you can somehow abracadabra them into believing that the brother was resisting arrest and everything. That's how you know they living deliciously on the land. I mean, in these times right now. Right. And then they have the right to be mad at you for taking a knee and not wanting to be killed.
Right.
That's it for me.
Con. You know, and what you're bringing out is so heavy, you know, and that's actually, I believe it was General Hyman brought out, you know, that's one of their tactics. You know, when they got a brother in the chokehold or a sister in the chokehold, they know that they're not resisting, but they're saying out loud, stop resisting, right? And that's part of their tactic, even though they're killing us, cutting off our air supply, you know. But at the same time, they're saying stop resisting, you know, so that when they go to court, they can say that they were resisting, you know, and that, and even though it's recorded time and time and time again, they were resisting. I felt threatened for my life. You know, that's one of those call outs. I have you pinned down on the ground, have you in a chokehold, you can't move, but yet you're resisting.
Yet you're resisting.
Right. And that's, once again, what you brought us so heavy, they say that out loud to be part of their defense.
So does Yahushua need to save them? They already gonna be saved. You know what I mean? In the acts of an innocent murder, they people are not gonna find them at fault.
Right.
It's Yahushua's job to come back and find them at fault. You know what I mean?
Con.
It's up to the men of the Isupk to find them at fault, to call them out on their thing and wake up the brothers and sisters, so that they know that this is what do you call it? A warfare tactic that they use.
Right.
A warfare tactic that they use against black people. And they'll tell them, you're resisting arrest. Man, my hand, just like that officer had his hand in his pocket, my hand was in my pocket.
Right.
I'm sitting here just waiting on you to knock it off. You know what I mean?
Come on.
When are you gonna stop though? When I'm dead? So I mean, that's it for me. So
Come on. Appreciate it. And once again, what you're saying is so heavy because, now we're at the point where we are now. We have all these so-called protesters that's not doing any good whatsoever, right?
Right.
And then now our oppressor, as it says in the scripture, they hunt our steps, right? So they're taking it to another level right now. Hanging brothers in trees, hanging sisters in trees, the very past week. So you march, sing Kumbaya, all this other kind of stuff. They notch it up a level. They don't care about the laws being passed against cops. But for them, that's just a wake-up call. You know what? We're going to take it to the next level. What do you think is going to happen to all these so-called peace officers when they're fired off their jobs, when they disband these police departments, so on and so forth? They're just going to take it to another level. How do you have, in a span of 2 weeks, 6 people being hung on trees, and there's no witnesses and no videos of it? They're so-called up.
There's everything going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
The videos, everything going on. That's like the brother brought out. Officer Concern for Cars brought out. These got to be police officers that's kidnapping people. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's got to be. Once again, the overseers. The overseers were taught to go out and bond the slaves, right?
Right. The original police, slave catchers.
Once they found them, it wasn't, unless he was specifically told to bring them back alive, he was at liberty to do whatever he wanted to do. And that's what they're doing to us right now. The overseers are going out, they're going to show them that we are great hunters, just like Esau was.
Right.
We're cunning hunters. We got the best scheme in America on how to hunt niggas.
Right.
What's that? The goddamn badge. You know what I mean? The badge we use is the best ploy for us to go out and hunt niggas and hang them, take them, kidnap them, take them to another community, hang them from trees, and then call the news 5 or 6 or 7 hours later. It'd be the same people. It don't be no surprise, David, or nothing. They will call 5, 6, 7 hours later.
Right.
We know he already done. We just want the plug to let y'all know that, hey, when you ask for the police to stop killing, that's what Jimmy Hunter brought out. Jim Muhammad brought out something so heavy last night that marinated with me. He said that American politics is a deadly compromise for Black and Hispanic people. You know what I mean?
Right.
The political, when you get caught up in this voting and you get caught up in all these other things, you're playing a deadly game with Black and Hispanic and Native Indian people. Because all they're going to do is rewrite the murder. You know what I mean?
Right.
Have you ever heard that script? They're going to rewrite the murder. That's all they're going to do. So that's it for me. Go ahead.
Appreciate that. Let's see here. You made me think about something. Let's see here. When you bring that out, about the political system that we have here in America, now that's going on now with Black Lives Matter, so on and so forth. We've just become fodder, for the politicians. And I looked up the word fodder. It says inferior or readily available material used as oh man, my phone just went blank. We'll do this again. Readily available material used to supply a heavy demand. So they just use us as fodder as part of their political activity. When at the end of the day, we know that our vote does not count in this country. They're just using us to fill TV time and airtime on the news of what Black Lives Matter, when at the end of the day, we know to them that our lives do not matter. We know Black Lives Matter because the Bible tells us Black Lives Matter. And so with that being said, it's hard to understand why somebody would not come into this truth. When they look at the history of the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians in this country over the last 400 or 500 years, why wouldn't you come into this truth? Because you don't agree with a certain doctrine? Come in here and be a righteous woman. Come in here and be a righteous man. So with that, I'm good. Any other comments?
Just one last one to be wrapping up.
Go ahead.
The thing, I've heard brothers, I've been around and thing and talked to different brothers and everything about. I'm saying, ask them, have they heard of ISUPK? They go, yeah, I watched the class. I watched the class. Yada, yada, yada. But their main thing is that they love doing the will of themselves so much that they think that vote counts. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That vote tells them that vote for goddamn Trump, for whoever else is going to come after Trump, tells them that they can continue to do whatever it is. They don't vote for Yahweh. They're going to vote for the next person to come up and allow them to be the wicked beasts, the filthy animals that they have been their whole lives. You know what I'm saying? All they got to do is show up to the Christian church and continue. Give him they tithes, pass their story over to him. He tell you, pray to the Lord tonight. He ain't never once told them to repent about nothing.
Right.
He said, just turn it over just give it up to the Lord. If you're homosexual, go out and deal with another penis tomorrow. If you're a whore, go out and deal with another penis tomorrow. If you're whatever you are, just give it up to the Lord, and He's gonna forgive you because He is all love, and you laid your burdens down at the table when you did not lay your sins down at the table and turn away from them. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's it.
Appreciate you bringing that out. Yeah, and then right after that, if you feel so moved, it's time to get baptized. Right? Go down into the pool. And you can even go down into the pool, which is supposed to be symbolic of washing away your sins, and come back up and go do the same thing you were doing that same night. And repeat the cycle over and over and over again. Well, guess what? In the ISUPK, there's oversight. There's brotherhood, there's sisterhood. And even though we don't always understand it, looking at it from the outside, go ahead. Go ahead.
Brother, I like to say, it is talking about baptism.
Yeah, we got some sound coming through. Somebody put their phone on mute, please. Baba Kasha.
No, I'm saying, but the baptism of Brother I'm one like to say, you came in a dry center and you left out a wet center.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah, that's right.
Why do people do this?
So with that, I'm going to get ready to end the class. I'm going to read the security announcements. We're at ISUPK under Commander General Johanna started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York.
You're not going to defeat me.
Could everybody put their phone on mute? All phones on mute, please. All phones on mute. Baba Kasha. We're at ISUPK under Commander General Johanna started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother or sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which a brother and sister will court each other. After the 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, can be found in the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 21. Also in Malachi, chapter 3, verses 8 through 10. It means a tenth in Hebrew, a ma'asharah. 10% of any increase the Lord gives you, gives to the Treasury Department, or teacher, or priest fund. Priest fund is a free will offering for priests, not mandatory, whatsoever amount you would like. If you go to isupk.com, you can find the announcements for the upcoming Holy Convocation. Also, any Akim or Aqua, we'll remind you to check the website. That's what we're doing right here. If any brother wants to be a trooper in the school, start wearing all black, boots, shirts, pants, headband, or scarf. So with that, I'm going to say Shalom, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai Barakatham to all the brothers, and Shalom, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Hashem to all the sisters. Class dismissed.
Shalom, Yahweh Shem, Shalom.